You mentioned gender there, by the way, and I'm not trying to correct you, but we're talking about sex at the Olympics, not gender.
Very true.
Because it's
Very true.
gender,
And I think,
but you're right in saying gender, because gender ideology has captured the Olympic Games. And you know what? It's apart from drug taking in the sport, I mean, maybe even alongside drug taking, I think it's the most important issue right now in boxing, certainly for women's boxing. And I think we need to bang the drum on this as much as possible.
yeah, it'd be very interesting to know whether or not this has crossed over to pro boxing when it comes to females as well. Obviously, look, it's a discussion that me and you are going to have, and a discussion that will continue, I guess, until the next Olympics or the World Championships. But it'd be interesting to see whether or not it stops at Olympic or amateur boxing as opposed to maybe crossing over to pro boxing. Because I don't think it's something that people have ever debated before.
No,
And
no, I
it's
think you're right. I think it's come
mm,
up in athletics. You look at the 800-meter final at Rio Games with Caster Semenya and two other
yeah,
podium compatriots. Um, that since 2015, I think what's happened is the Olympics has highlighted this. It was highlighted and it went very much under the radar with IBA, the world governing body for amateur boxing, 2 years ago at their world championships, where the Taiwanese Ling and also the Algerian Imane Khelif, who's actually been the big story of the games in that sense, like say one of the downs really. My view, it's as simple as this, and I've been speaking to biologists, doctors. You're either female. There's only two sexes. Doesn't matter what gender you choose to be, whether you are all of the genders that there are. There are many genders now in
mm-hmm,
society. There's only two sexes. You're either male or you're either female. Doesn't matter if you go through transition and you transgender. You are still biologically either male or female. And I know we're going to get into this more deeply, but I think that anyone that competes in women's boxing should have to do a biological test, biological passport, as simple as that. We simply cannot allow someone who in the womb, whether they have a disorder or not, have developed higher levels of testosterone, deeper bone structure, bigger bone structure, stronger musculature, all those things that happen when a fetus becomes a baby, when it's being born in the womb, when it's growing in the womb, regardless of genitalia. I know it's weird to be discussing all these things, but it's irrelevant. What's relevant is the genetics, not the optics. And what the Olympics have done, they've done it based on an F in your passport, as in female. If you and I had an F in our passports, we could compete in the Olympic Games.
mm,
That's the rule at the moment. It's absolutely ludicrous. They need to test properly. And in our sports, fight sports, more than any other sport, horse jumping, show jumping, running, skipping, whatever it is, it has to be done because cannot have men facing women because men are stronger and hit harder and are more powerful than women. Fact.
yeah, yeah. And look, I mean, we've seen some females banned for their increased testosterone over the years, almost trying to have the advantage, I guess, an Imane Khelif would have naturally, if that makes any sense.
I
So
don't know.
people can be banned for that.
Yeah, there are levels of testing. If you listen to people like Sharon Davies, the swimmer, she always competed against East Germans, some of whom are dead, some of whom have been very ill, because
She
when they were growing
always
up,
believed though that they had
no,
male
they were.
chromosomes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, they were just given so much testosterone by their country to compete. So they were enhanced as females. This is a different story. These are DSDs that we believe these are DSDs, disorders through growth, through just their genetic disorders. The people competing who as females have X and Y chromosomes, not XX chromosomes. They actually, this is what the belief is. It's a very simple biological test. And I spoke to Dr. Emma Hilton about this last weekend. You take a blood sample from a woman and you crush it in a lab and you take the white blood cells and you test it. You can know within a week in a medical lab whether that person is genetically male or female. End of. And that's all. If a woman is more advanced physically but is an XX, fine. They are just an advantaged woman, like
Yeah.
Usain Bolt is at 6'5" and long limbs, and Michael Phelps is as a swimmer as a man. If a woman is genuinely a woman, genetically, by a biological test, they should be able to fight any woman out there. Simple as that. But if they're
Do
not,
you
no.
do you think they should almost do um, like retroactive testing, like almost
Oh,
look back
oh,
and
well, Imane Khelif, I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this.
no, 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 no,
I've
no.
really looked into this in the last few weeks. It's been troubling me because I think
Mm.
there's a dereliction of duty. I know we're getting into this early in the show, but there's a dereliction of duty, in my view, from the IOC. A failure of duty of care for female boxers. Because if they are allowing women, ostensibly, optically women, who are actually men because they've got XY chromosomes and they're genetically men, we need to have this debate and have this test and say, no, anyone that has XY and is biologically male, regardless of optics and regardless of genitalia or
Mm.
visuals, they must not box against women. Well, and I do think the retrospective test is right. Imane Khelif, her lawyers have issued a statement, haven't they, for slander and libel and all these things. Go and do a test. Show us a test that shows that you're female, and then it's all done. We can all shut up,
What
and
happens
that's
then?
the way it should be done.
So these females, and in inverted commas, there no longer compete in Olympics, or do we have a separate Olympics for them?
There's only two sexes, male and female, and I don't want to be inhumane or not empathetic about this at all, but we've reached a point now where we need to certainly. I'm just talking from fight sports perspective. Do
Yeah, yeah.
not allow a woman ostensibly who looks like a woman who's actually a man genetically in a cage or in a ring or in whatever combat sphere it is against a woman. Women have got to fight women because there is danger. It's a dangerous sport anyway, and we don't
As
want.
as as I said, and look, we'll get into this more a bit later. But as I said, I do wonder whether or not this now needs to cross over to pro sports because again, just on the eye test, and that's wrong to do. Sometimes I watch MMA and watch boxing. I'm like, oh, okay, physically they look a lot more manly again in inverted commas than their opponent. So
Yeah,
I
but
do
you're
wonder
just
if
doing
this
the
has
eye
ever
test.
been done.
You're doing the eye test. So, and like you say, the eye test may tell us things, but the eye test may be deceiving us as well. So,
Yeah.
I think the key is, like you say, we need to cross over into pro sport, biological passports, simple as that, and then we
It's the only
know
way.
exactly where we stand, whether that person is genetically male or female. Simple as that. I think musculature and all those things can be developed by women. Of course they can. And there's some
Mm.
incredibly powerful women, much more powerful than we will ever be, even as men. But the
Yeah.
strength comparison in terms of being in the warrior code of being a fighter, the equivalent, you've got to be 30 kilos. This is what the doctors were telling me last week. You've got to be 30 kilos heavier as a woman. Yeah, 30 kilos to have the same strength as a man.
Wow. There you go.
So a heavyweight woman is the same strength, or a lightweight man facing a lightweight woman. He's actually a heavyweight to her. That's what he
Yeah.
is.
That's crazy. And I guess for the Olympics, this is going to run and run and run now because Imane Khelif and Ting, who were both talking about one gold. So if it was a case of them getting knocked out in the first rounds, this wouldn't even be a conversation. The fact they went on to both win golds is, again, a bigger problem. Imane Khelif's name in particular has been widely spoken about in the last couple of weeks. Some maybe wrongly, some rightly so. But the fact that they've gone on both to win gold now has just opened up a whole different can of worms, Gareth. And now the conversation has to be about what you said, biological passports, especially for athletes that can compete in combat sports. It just seems the only way. It seems the only way because now if they were both knocked out in the first or second rounds, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The fact that they've both gone on to win gold, I guess, suggests this really needs to be the top of the agenda when it comes to the IOC or IBA or anyone.
It's been highlighted because of the games and their success. They both lost to female amateurs before. Amy Broadhurst, I think, beat them. I think Sky Nicholson might have beaten one of them as well. But now, and it's good it's been highlighted, I don't think medals should be taken away retrospectively, regardless of what happens in testing afterwards. But you think about Imane Khelif, and what a hot prospect she is now in the pro ranks. Imagine her
Is
against
she?
Clarissa Shields.
Is she?
Oh, she is. If she can do a test, I think she will have to do a test to be in the pro
Mm.
ranks. Commissions might demand it.
Mhm.
If she turns pro, she's such a big name that
Yeah.
imagine
Okay.
her against Clarissa Shields. Imagine her against what's she welterweight, I think. Her against I'm trying to think who else.
Sandy Ryan, Michaela
Sandy
Meyer. There's
Ryan,
loads. Yeah.
Cameron, Chantel Cameron, all these girls, massive. But I do think that she should take a test and do that to prove. It's good that it's been highlighted. It was one of the big shocks of the games. The IOC were appalling over it. They didn't. They were very wishy-washy. IBA, the International Boxing Association, stepped in and caused a lot of problems by having press conferences in Paris as well about it.
Yeah.
Having a go at the IOC because obviously they've been suspended from the games. And we don't know if there's boxing in the Olympics in 2028 yet in Los Angeles.
As it stands, there isn't.
There isn't. But IBA got in and got political with the IOC, had their own press conference in Paris, got journalists there at the games, made it a bigger story. There's definitely been a lot of politicking. IOC maybe not wanting to deal with it because they don't want to give IBA a step up and say, look what IBA did that was good 2 years ago at the World Championships. They definitely did testing there. Don't know if it was blood or whether it was just cheek swab. That's not been revealed. But it's been one of the big stories of the games and one of the negative stories and it's one of the curious things because, even I've noticed with you today, and I spent 2 weeks getting my head around this and reading and researching and speaking to people and being journalistic about it because that's what it comes down to, black and white. You're either male or female. There's two sexes on this planet. There's no other sexes. Everything else is gender ideology. Transgender, all those other, the crossing of the genders is all gender ideology. And I wonder whether the IOC have been taken over by gender ideology.
I was just about to say this. Look, the IOC has obviously had a heads up here with IBA. IBA have tested these two ladies. Again, we don't know the testing, but they've tested them and deemed them not okay to fight in the world champ. So IOC have had a heads up about these two ladies in particular. And then you watch the opening ceremony for the Olympics, and you wonder whether or not they even care about what these ladies were and what bracket they fall into, because the Olympics now seem to be, I don't want to say strange is the wrong word, but again, you watch the opening ceremony, you can make your mind up about where the Olympics want to go down the future. So I wonder, even if they did have a heads up about Imane Khelif and exactly what the problems were, whether they would have done anything anyway.
Look, gender ideology is really important on our planet. It's really important to allow people to live how they want to live, what they how and who and why and how they identify. No issue. It's amazing that the world is opening up. People are being different and allowed to be different and allowed to be themselves. But when it comes to a sport, stronger, faster, higher, longer, all those things.
Jumper. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all those things. There's two genders, male and female, masculine and feminine. Two genders, and by genders I mean sexes. That's it, and that's what we're looking at here. And it's not just in boxing, which is the most heinous of all those sports to put a man biologically in with a woman. It's all the other sports. So there's fairness because that's what it's about. It's about men and women competing not against each other, but in their own category. It's a really straightforward issue for me. And what the IOC did 9 years ago was go on a piece of paper rather than go on genetic testing. And they need to revert back to genetic testing now. And I bet they will for Los Angeles. I bet you anything they will.
We'll see how this plays out. It's gonna rumble on.
I'm not going away on this. I want you to go with me on this as well, because if any woman tests biologically as a man, we've got to get on top of it and forbid it. It's as simple as that. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, no. I agree in all sports, let alone combat sports. I
Yeah.
feel that there's a massive advantage. Again, I go to back to the Caster Semenya situation, and I watched Caster destroy other athletes, and it became so easy for her that she, on purpose, started losing just because it was almost too obvious what was happening. So if that's happening, if the advantage is there in a straight line, I can only imagine the advantage in a physical combat sport. So yeah,
Safety.
I'm with you all the way.
Safety as well. Safety.
Safety, yeah, yeah.
Imagine if a woman suffered a brain damage from boxing one of those, either Khalif or the Taiwanese boxer Ting. Where are we then? It's the same issue as someone being in male boxing, someone testing positive retrospectively for a steroid, but having put the other person into a coma or have damaged them irreparably, or God forbid, having killed them. It's almost criminal.
What
It's heinous.
my concern for this is I think it's gone very political as well. I read a lot now, especially on Imane Khelif. She seems to have become the focal point for this discussion, not so much the other athlete. And it seems to be that there seems to be a wave of people in support of it. I think
Mm.
not understanding the dangers of the sport that we cover. And again, you just mentioned the advantages someone could have, but there seems to be a huge support, a huge wave of support for Imane Khalif. And look, I'm in support of. I can imagine the stress levels she's been put through,
Oh yeah,
but
absolutely.
it doesn't make it right, and they are going to need to look at this further.